Since we began at the Can-Am Sports Academy in 1995, there have been some watershed moments along the way, and one of them was in 2003 when I first wrote the Athletic Pitcher Program. I haven't been as excited about a concept since that time. One of these, there are several key watershed moments, as I said. This is one of them, in my opinion. Our understanding, our application to the movement pattern and using PRC, the connection part. Connection is now becoming such an important part of what we're doing, not only for velocity creation, for building a repeatable delivery, but also keeping the health and durability of the arm. So I'm really excited to bring this DVD to you about connection. I believe it's probably one of the more exciting things that I've done in the last 10 years, this epiphany that we've had. So we're going to talk about connection, the C of the PRC. My search for the final arc. In Paul Nyman in 2003 showed us the concept of backward chaining, or what we say back shaping, and that is taking a movement and finding its most critical element, and then going from there, going backwards in the delivery, or going backwards in that movement pattern from the most critical element. So we must assume that a delivery from start to end has its more critical elements in the delivery. I think everybody would agree with that. I don't think anybody, regardless whose philosophy it is, would say there are parts in the delivery that are more critical than other parts of the delivery. So what Paul Nyman suggested, and what backward chaining, the motor learning protocol of backward chaining means, is you go find the most significant moment in the activity and then work backward from there, rather than start from the stance and work all the way out. It was really a paradigm shift, or paradigm change. So we're going to focus upon the most critical phase and move backwards, segment by segment from there. Well, the first thing that we did is we started to really work on deceleration, which is that critical moment forward. Now we're going to go from that critical moment and we're going to go backwards a couple frames. And really what we're going to be talking about is moving into foot plant all the way to release. This is what we consider very important, very critical, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. The epiphany for me came, if you've been with us for a while, you notice we always did the final arc, and we did some final arc drills, and we did all that, and that was a good start. It was not particularly effective, but it was a good concept, and it started us down the path, and it led us really into our deceleration, which was obviously a very important part of what we do. But as I kept going on to this and kept going on and trying to find the most important movement segment in the whole delivery, I came across, and so I no longer call it the final arc. I call it the final connection. What is the final connection where our body parts now are going to work together to create the delivery of the baseball? And so I'm looking at these pictures. Now we have four, I guess these two are not Hall of Fame yet. They certainly will be. But we're taking a look at really four different types of pitchers. We have Randy Johnson here, that's really a sidearm, a really, really low three-quarter guy who was 6'10", did not have a breaking ball, had a curveball, had a fastball and a slider. And then we had Nolan Ryan, and with a very, very high leg kick. Randy Johnson had a very low leg kick. Then we had Roger Clemens, that is definitely a high three-quarter in his delivery. And then we have Greg Maddux, who is not known for his velocity, but is known a lot more for his finesse. And he's a high three-quarter guy. And yet, when you see all these different guys were different, completely different in their delivery and in their movement patterns, and yet look how similar they are. You take a look at their glove size, first of all, they're almost identical. When you take a look at their forearm position, it's almost identical. When you take a look at where the ball is facing, it's almost identical. When you take a look at the elbow in relationship to the shoulder and the forearm in relationship to the elbow, it's almost identical. So that was really an epiphany for me, because although everybody is unique in the way they get to here, the final connection becomes critical. The final connection, that's what we're going to be talking about. And then once we even identify that, then the next question is, okay, so that's important. Well, then how in the world do we teach it? And then furthermore, how did these guys get there to begin with? There was no pitching coach, so how did they get there? I would assert to you today that is natural. This position is natural, and all we're trying to do is accelerate the learning, to shorten the learning curve, to find it there early. I've had some young men that are now doing this will say, you know, in a very short period of time, using the connection ball, which I'm going to share with you here, that in a very short period of time, they actually feel better when they throw with the connection ball than when they throw without it. And once that occurs, then you start to understand there's the feeling of me getting into this, really aligning everything so that that final connection, so that when I rotate, I maximize those angles that I've created. I maximize my leverage in my limbs to maximize or optimize my delivery. And so this started out with the epiphany with these four men. So now, regardless of posture, so now we have Timmy Lincecum here that is really tilted, and we have Roger Clemens that's not so much tilted, and we have Cliff Lee, who is a little bit tilted. We have Timmy that's greatly tilted, and then we have Beckett that has a slight tilt. So you have all this. If I turn Timmy Lincecum, here's what he looks like normally, but if I tilt him, look how similar that is. They're very, very similar. And so what I'm saying to you, and then we have Cliff Lee do the same thing. We straighten him out. Look how similar that is. This cannot be by mistake. And then we have Beckett here and Clemens. So regardless of posture and regardless of pitch type, here we have the Rocket throwing a splitty. We have Beckett throwing a curveball. And we have Cliff Lee throwing a fastball and Timmy Lincecum throwing a fastball. So regardless of posture, regardless of pitch type, this applies. And this is important to us, because regardless of your style, regardless of your posture, regardless of the degree of your tilt, the connection is the final connection is still the same. It's universal. So that's important to us as we go forward. Oh, so now the question is, where exactly in this sequence does our final connection take place? It's a really good question. It's a really good question. So now we have Nolan Ryan, and what I've done is I've blown up Nolan's position here, and I've blown it up, and you see that he's about ready to hit the ground. He has not hit the ground yet. He is just a couple inches from hitting it. And then we have Roger Clemens, who has hit the ground, and here's what we see. We see that Nolan Ryan's heel is slightly down, just barely picking up off the rubber here. It's got about a couple inches. And then we have Roger Clemens, whose heel has really rotated. So really, the final connection takes place right in between here and here. So right before foot plant into foot plant, in my opinion, is very important, because when this foot is now planted, it sends a signal up to the spine and body to rotate, really rotate. Now that signal is probably already sent here, because you're anticipating the rotation. But here and here is when this position becomes critical. And if I am not in this position here, if I don't have these angles in my levers in this position, I'm going to be placed, I have a chance for my levers to be in a more disadvantageous position. And that's going to affect not only velocity, but it's going to affect repeatability, and most importantly, it's going to affect health and durability. Very, very important. So now, what the connection characteristic number one? What are the characteristics that we're looking at for the final connection? And the throwing forearm should be inside of the elbow. Inside of the elbow when the spine begins to rotate. Outside would be back in here. Okay? Throwing forearm inside of elbow when the spine begins to rotate. Very, very important. If you see here, we have the circle of the elbow, then we have the forearm, and you see that the forearm is inside of the elbow. All right? So what is the range from optimal to marginal to problematic? So what is well within the range? What is kind of marginal that you might want to pay attention to? And what is problematic? Well, we believe that when we're looking to elbow-to-hand relationship, the green here, if we take Noah and Ryan, there's his head, this oval right here. That's Nolan's head. There's his shoulder, or his humerus, and there's his forearm. The green is anywhere inside of 90. And I would say that ideally we're going to want to be, we're just going to want to be consistently inside of that 90 degrees. I think 80 is even better. When we get to 90, that's the yellow. That's where Verlander is. He's right on the edge. And if we get anything outside of that 90, where the red is, that's when it's going to be problematic. Now when we rotate, and if you have this, you lose mechanical advantage. This arm is going to come out. We're going to have an arm path that is that's disconnected. We're going to have extra stress to the medial elbow. We're going to have it just goes bad. It's going to be we're going to be around the baseball. All these different things that occur, and this is going to be important. Now Verlander is right on the edge. So what I would say is when you're looking at your video, as the body starts to rotate, look at right when the body starts to rotate and the foot goes into foot plant and we start to rotate. If that arm is outside of 90, that is certainly problematic. If it's at 90, it is marginal, meaning that our timing has to be impeccable. And then if it's inside, we have some degree of freedom there to make kind of a mistake, slight mistake in sequencing, and we're still okay because our mechanical advantage is maintained. So now, characteristic 1B, forearm to humerus angle inside of 90, right here. See, a lot of people would say, well, this is problematic, and this is problematic. Well, these are two of the greatest pitchers of my generation. Over 600, almost 700 wins between them in professional baseball, and this one, that Greg never had an arm issue, always had was a groin or lower back, not that. And Roger had arm issues early in his career, but not later. And you see this angle here, and you go, oh my gosh, look at that is indeed the case. And what we say is 90 degrees, greater than 90 degrees. Right here, Scotty Casimir, one of my students. 90 degrees is greater than 90. That's going to be problematic. 80 to 90 is marginal. 65 to 80 is optimal. So just kind of have an idea, and you want to really look at it from this side position here. And this goes against what a lot of people believe is true, but this is or good. But this is exactly where we want to have it. And I could show you many top-level pitchers that was the case. All right, connection characteristic number 2 is the throwing elbow is actually below, and I emphasize below the shoulder. This goes against what most people believe is get this arm up here. And all you have to do is sit at your desk and have your arm down here like this and lift it up and down and up and down, and then close your eyes and then play with it and try to get to where it feels comfortable. The elbow will always be below shoulder. Then as we rotate, this elbow will come up, but we're not going to start with it here and rotate from here. That's really going to be, if we have the elbow above the shoulder, whether that is from this position or that position, whatever, as we start to rotate, that's going to put extra stress on anterior shoulder or medial elbow as we go. So if you see here, the lines are across the acromial lines of the shoulder. Elbows are below that, and that's going to be important. So connection or disconnection. The distal humerus, and here's the humerus. The distal means the furthest away from the midline. The distal humerus is, if it's higher than the shoulder, and in Tommy Hansen's case, it is. And just a side note, Tommy Hansen, there was a study done, I think it was last year, or the year before on the most nasty pitchers in Major League Baseball. Tommy Hansen was number 2, only after Justin Verlander. So this is not a case of nasty versus not nasty, or a good pitcher versus non-good pitcher. This is a factor of having good recovery, being able to be healthy over a long stretch of time. And as we know, Tommy Hansen's been on the DL with some shoulder issues, and I would say that number one cause of that, or a significant contributor to that, has been that his distal humerus has been lifted above the shoulder, which is going to create some extra stress there. And then, so what do I believe? I believe here's the red line, the acromial line for the shoulders, and it lines us up. If we're in line with the yellow, with the red line, that's yellow. That means it's even with the shoulders marginal. Okay, we may be able to get away with it, but if we don't time it exactly right, it could be an issue. We have above it, anything above it is definitely problematic. We're going to have extra. Just lifting this up requires us to contract muscles or utilize muscles in ways that are not meant to, and will actually inhibit or interfere with ideal sequencing and ideal the ideal synchronization of the throwing shoulder and throwing arm, and will minimize or inhibit our performance. The ideal is 15 degrees below, that is what we were really looking for. So you see Greg Maddux is definitely below in his shoulder, and this goes against, like I said, against. Now remember, this is at foot plant or heading into foot plant that the elbow's below. So now as I rotate, now this appears, as I get here, it appears like this elbow is now higher than the shoulder, but it's usually because I tilt this way and it just looks like it is, and everybody thinks it's a low elbow is bad. Well, if I threw like this, that would not be a good thing. What I'm saying is that you want to have your elbow here as you start to rotate. Then as you rotate and you get into release, then it organizes itself that way. But into foot plant, the elbow is definitely below the shoulder. Characteristics number 3 and 4 of connection. The glove side arm and the glove side scapula are connected to the spine. So here's the glove. Now the green line is the spine. See, it's arched. That would be Greg's spine here. And the glove, this is locked in because it's locked in here with the scapula and it's locked in here at the arm. So this is locked in to the spine so that when the spine turns, it turns together. I always tell people, my young people, good boxer, bad boxer, that's a bad boxer. A good boxer is locked on and they rotate, boom, with the spine. This is disconnected. The arms are disconnected from the spine. I want to connect my arms to the spine and to the trunk and to the hip. So the throwing arm and the throwing scapula is the same. It is also connected to the spine. So you see what's going on back here. This is very important. This is very good that this right here at this moment is really connected to the spine. And so as that spine rotates, our glove side and our throwing side are together and connected and work together and in one piece. And so I have down here listed at the end so that when a pitcher rotates, he does so in one connected piece. You don't have body parts working independently of the spine. Maddux, rotating into a fixed stable glove side. So I don't know, the picture's a little dark here, but there's his glove, there's Maddux glove, there's his position of his arm, and now the next one is, you can see the elbow as he starts to rotate. He just takes this, rotates it up here, glove side stays solid here, and then it releases. All he's doing is rotating his spine into a fixed and stable glove side. So he rotates in to the spine. It's not separated or disconnected. They rotate together. This is the fixed end. It must be fixed for us to rotate against it. And so what we're doing is we're rotating our spine, and then eventually we're rotating around our front hip. So it's glove, front hip is what we're going to rotate around. The glove side and the front hip are fixed and allows us to rotate around it. It's the fixed end. That affords us our power. So two people, Coach Strom, Brent Strom, and Mike Marshall, use these phraseology a bunch. Rotate through a narrow doorway. That's what we're talking about. Applying force in a straight line while rotating. That may sound counterintuitive that we're rotating through a straight line, but that's exactly what happens. When we're connected, we're rotating through a straight line. That's exactly what we're doing. We're going to rotate into a fixed, stable glove side, and we're maintaining joint integrity so we don't have joints getting apart. The joints stay connected and have integrity with the spine. Once again, so that when a pitcher rotates, he does so in one connected piece. Disconnection means it's going to be stress to the shoulder and elbow. So here's Randy Johnson, same thing. Look where the glove is. A lot of people would say right here, they would say he's flying open. Well, not so much. Because the next thing, this becomes fixed, and he'll rotate in to the glove side and rotate in to his front hip. So I draw this line here. There's his front hip and there's his glove side. He actually rotates right into a stable, fixed glove side. Here's Roger Clemens, the same thing. There's his glove. That will stay there. He will now rotate into that. And notice, there he is at release. Rotating against that front hip, against that front side. Notice his angle here, and then notice his angle here. That stays solid here as now he just rotates this angle, stays here. It is not pulling, it's just solid and stable, and we're rotating into a fixed, solid, stable glove side. And if we do that, if you do that, you're going to release the baseball out in front. If I rotate into a fixed, solid glove side, I'm going to release that baseball out here. If it becomes independent, I release it back in here. And that means I'm going to be disconnected. So that's very important. So it took three different types of pitchers. We got Randy Johnson, Greg Maddox, and Roger Clemens. You notice Randy Johnson here with this really low three-quarter, and we have Roger Clemens with this high. And this is really just a posture. Really, if you look at it, it's a postural angle that changes that. But regardless of what, now a lot of people call that arm slot, it's just really, it's not a slot. It's the amount of postural change, or how it's not even change. It's postural position as you rotate. So now, the glove side has tension at both the distal and proximal ends so that it works in tandem with the spine. So it's locked in to the spine. The key thing is lock in. Now here, look, notice Rocket's glove side. See how it's squeezed? That means there's tension here. Up here, we got the scapula with tension here. So if I've got tension here and tension here, that is locked on. That is locked on to the spine. Then when he just rotates, that stays the same, and he just rotates around that firm glove side. It is not separate. We don't teach people to tuck and pull. We teach them to rotate into a firm front glove side, so that we works in tandem with the spine. They are working as a unit, not separate or independent. So, what is the relationship between the connection and connective tissue? In other words, aka injury. The disconnection directly affects the stress on the connective tissue in the joints. If I lose joint integrity, if I lose shoulder integrity or elbow integrity, that means something's going to have to replace that or strengthen that or stabilize that, and that's going to have to be the connective tissue around the joint. And that it was not designed to do that. And it's not designed to be the brakes, and so you got connective tissue that is really put at risk, that is unnecessary. And really, pitchers rarely break at the muscular level. They break at the connective tissue level. So they don't break at the bicep or tricep or delt or oblique or the lat or the trap. It breaks at the shoulder with the rotator cuff or the labrum, and it breaks at the UCL. So those are connective tissue that try to stabilize the joint while there's change going on inside the joint. And if you have a movement pattern that is disconnected, you are going to have extra stress on that joint. And I don't care how much arm care you do, I don't care how strong you are, that's only going to minimize that, but it's going to come back and it's going to haunt you. So if we reduce disconnection, we reduce the chance of injury. Now, I'm not going to go out there like Mike Marshall will say that we can eliminate all injuries, and the reason I say that is because movement patterns are so varied. Unless you force everybody into an exact same movement pattern, which of course Marshall suggests that everybody throws exactly the same, I'm suggesting that would be impossible even as a theory. It's a theory, but I think it would be impossible as a practical approach, is that everybody's uniquely different. And so if you have 10 different people, you have 10 different organizations of that delivery, and it's impossible to eliminate all injuries because people are just too varied. However, we can really greatly reduce, and I think it was very worthwhile to reduce the stresses and reduce the unnecessary disconnection to the connective tissue just by staying connected and doing these drills. And that's why I believe it's important that we do that. So what is the application? Now that you understand, we can either, when we're dealing with people, we can either do one of two things. We can either affect what people call mechanics is simply, I think people don't understand what that means. Mechanics is simply an engineer's way of saying, how do you use your levers, your different levers? There's more advantageous positions and less advantageous positions. And in the sequencing, how can we make best use of more advantageous positions? And that means the pelvis and the feet and the spine. How can we make maximum use of those leverage positions? That's one way we can affect it. The second way is really the synchronization or the timing or the sequencing of those levers in space and time. So there's really only two things we can do. We can either affect the position itself in the delivery, or we can affect how those interact with each other in space and time, meaning the sequencing or timing of it. And we choose to do both. We choose to do both. We choose to really try to lock in and teach more advantageous leverage positions, and then we lock these into our movement patterns, which really reinforce a more advantageous tempo, synchronization, sequencing, timing, that sort of thing. All right? So now, characteristic number one, the forearm inside of the elbow. So here's Roger. So here is Eric, and there is the position, and there's the position. That's what I'm looking for as he's starting to throw. So throwing forearm is going to be inside of the elbow when the spine begins to rotate. And we use the connection ball right here between the forearm and the humerus. You squeeze that, and then right as you begin to rotate, this is guaranteed that we are in the most in an area that is more advantageous than somewhere else. So we kind of lock that in. We use this in everything that we do. We use it in our decel. We use it in our walking torque. We'll use it in our jump backs. We'll use it in our hook'ems. We'll use this concept in everything we do. So every time we use, let's say, jump backs, we're actually literally dealing with tempo, synchronization, and also now we're putting the ball in here, which is going to, we're now addressing leverage positions, so now we have the best of both worlds. We're actually taking the chains out of the links out of the chain to make it move more efficiently, and then we're making sure the body positions are at its maximum advantageous position to maximize or optimize our movement pattern. So so he will actually throw a ball from all of our drills with the ball locked in here. And of course, when he throws, this ball will go free. And I'm going to show, we're going to have some demonstrations here later right after I'm done speaking, and this ball will go out. That's the downside to this. And you're going to have balls, as you're doing this, you're going to have balls going different places, and that may be a little chaotic. I would suggest to you that little irritation or inconvenience pales in significance to the profound gains that you get from the feeling of the body understanding where that position is. Now, once again, I'm going to reiterate this because this is important. What we're trying to do is trying to get this young man to feel, what is it like to feel a more advantageous leverage position as he rotates. And what I hear from all my guys at the past 6 months doing this is they go, you know what, in about 5 or 6 throws, it feels better with the ball than it feels without the ball. When I don't have that ball, it doesn't feel as good as when I have that ball in here. What that tells me is the standard movement pattern is a less advantageous position, leverage position, and it's just over time, they will figure, by the blending process, they will figure out where that landmark is and throw it that way. So what we're actually doing is Maddox, Clemens, Ryan, and Johnson got there innately and got there naturally by just throwing. No way did they have a coach. No way did they have a connection ball. No way. So how did they get there? Well, they got there by just throwing, noticing, throwing, noticing, throwing, noticing. Maybe for some of it is noticing the pain. Maybe for some of it it's noticing how the ball came out. Maybe for some of them it's noticing what the velocity was. Maybe for some of it's noticing how good a command they had. I don't know, but they just, by trial and error, they just kind of figured out that is the movement pattern that is most efficient, that is most effective for what they wanted to do. What I'm suggesting is we're going to accelerate that process for a 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old. So we're going to take, if it took Noah and Ryan, and I want you to go back, and here's your little homework assignment as you're watching this. Go back and look at Noah and Ryan, any clips from Noah and Ryan when he was with the Mets, and you will see a disconnected thrower. He still threw hard, but he was disconnected. This arm angle was way longer and much more disconnected. Somehow with the Angels, he figured this out. Now, my guess is, I've heard from different people that Noah had some arm issues when he's with the Mets, and it may have been pain was the number one motivator for him to change. Pain's a great motivator. Pain may be the best motivator we have. But regardless of how he got there, the rest of it is just anecdotal. Regardless of how he got there and he really improved the movement pattern. My suggestion is we're going to do the exact same thing for all of our kids. We're just going to help them along the process. We're going to help speed up their learning. That's what this is intended to do. So drill number 1, characteristic number 1 is having this ball right here. And we simulate the rest of it with the forearm down and just simulate the rest of it. So now we go to application characteristic number 2, having the throwing elbow below the shoulder when the spine, and this is important, the throwing elbow below the shoulder when the spine begins to rotate. And so here he is, he's starting to rotate here. This elbow needs to be below the shoulder, right? Now once again, this ball is going to come out when they throw. It's just that we want the elbow below the shoulder when we start to rotate. And if that happens, then we're going to see this connected to the spine, saving connective tissue of the elbow and shoulder. When I do this, and then I start to rotate, that's disconnected from the spine. So really what I'm doing, I'm trying to maintain joint integrity with the shoulder and the elbow as we begin to rotate. It has been phenomenal. And it looks kind of odd. And you're going to have some players, specifically, guys, if you would take a Joel Jemiah who like this drill is going to feel really restrictive to them, and you're going to need to show him pictures of Roger Clemens. So if this Scotty Kashmir, this picture is not going to feel very good. And Joel Jemiah, this movement pattern with the ball here is not going to. So you're going to dislike what you need the most. That's what I'm finding. So once again, Eric Bender here is going to start with the ball below. He's going to squeeze that, and what that does is that locks this in by the fact that he has to hold this ball in here. It locks the scapula and the humerus into the spine as we start to rotate. And this is exactly what Greg Maddox does here. All right, so now we go to the next one and final one, and that is the characteristic 3 and 4, throwing arm, scapula, glove side, arm is both connected to the spine when we begin to rotate. So the ball is now in the glove side. It's placed here. And notice that the forearm angle is down. And we preset this so it's below the elbow. We inside of 90. And all we do now is we just rotate with this ball. And now, unlike the other two balls that came out, this ball is going to stay in. And we're going to hold on to that ball and we're going to rotate this way. So now, there we have the 3. Ball here, ball here, ball here. Now, this is where the ranch comes in our ability to do this. Maybe our understanding of blending, neuromuscular blending, has really sped this up. Because what we do, the question is not, can a young man, throw like this? The answer is yes, and it looks really good. The $64 million question is, okay, once we take the ball away, once we take the stimulus away, does the kid revert back to an old movement pattern? And of course, what do you think the answer is? Of course it will. So now we're left. They look good in the drill, just like you look good on the tee. Then we go to live and you don't look so good anymore, right? So what is the transfer? How do we get this to transfer, the key word transfer, to the live delivery? And here's what we do. We blend. So we go we do one throw like this with the ball here. We do one throw like this with the ball here. And we do one throw like this with the ball here. And then we have one throw with no ball. So the person just throws the ball in every drill that we're doing, whether it's decel, jump backs, walking torque, hook'ems, step intos, whatever, okay? Then we go back and we go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, once that's starting to become really comfortable, that it feels really good, that they don't say, you're starting to see, okay, I would suggest that you film what they look like when there is not the stimulus here, here, or here. When that is taken away, film their normal throw and see how closely they can get to there. Okay? That is the whole point. Now, what you might want to do is once they start to become more comfortable with it, go 1, 1, 1, 2. Or if you find one, for example, let's say this one is the one that is the one he breaks down in the most, you might go just one of those, 2 regular throws, back to that, 2 regular throws, back to that, 2 regular throws. There's multiple ways you can blend this. Use your own imagination on this, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the brain to go back and forth and really have a feel image for where that body part should be in space and time as we go to rotate it. And that's how we use that. And maybe for someone else, this is the one. So you would go 1 and 1 or 1 and 2. And maybe this is the one that is the most needed. You get disconnected on your glove side. Go 1 and 1. I suggest that you start with 1, 1, 1, and throw. That's how I suggest you start. And then as every individual kind of evolves into their own throwing and you videotape them and you're looking at all these characteristics, you can start to personalize how they're going to use the connection ball. Mr. Oates has the connection ball. It is only one ball. You can inflate it or deflate it based on how much air you want into it. And you just kind of personalize it. The reason I really like Oates ball, a lot of you like, well, I'll just use a whatever ball. The reason the Oates connection ball is so important is that it has very little weight. It's very, very light, so you don't feel that's not affecting the movement pattern. And second of all, it has a real texture to it, so it doesn't slide out. It doesn't pop out prematurely. You get a lot of balls that are slick. That may happen for you. So there is the idea of connection. So now the next thing we're going to do on the tape the DVD is to actually let you see different people doing the different drills. And once again, I say this in closing, is that every drill we do, we can utilize the connection ball in some fashion or form. And we use it every single day, and especially we start with decel. We want to start to build that pattern even in decel, that we never want to let the arm, even for a moment, not be thinking about staying connected and maintaining joint integrity. Joint integrity will bring us the greatest results for as far as velo, for as far as building a repeatable delivery. We always say that word, have a repeatable delivery, but what does that mean? How do you do it? Kind of like marry a pretty rich girl, sounds like great advice, but how do you do it? And the third thing, and probably singly most important to me, is maintaining health and durability, because you don't put extra stress on joints. And the reason that's most important to me is, if I can keep my arm healthy, that means that I will throw more. By throwing more, I'm going to figure this out. I just believe that God is a better instructor than I will ever be, and that all we have to do is really throw a great deal, and the body will learn how to organize itself ideally for whatever is required. As we begin our discussion and we finish our discussion on connection and we do some demonstrations, the first thing that I want to talk about is that track coaches, golf coaches, swim coaches all seem to understand the importance of ground force angles and leverage and that sort of thing in their sports. And baseball, when we talk about mechanics, it becomes some sort of esoteric, nebulous conversation about style. And we all know that our pitchers, we know from research that every pitcher is unique. Eric's going to have a different style than Garrett, and all of our pitchers are going to be unique in their movement patterns. So when we talk about mechanics, we talk about it from a completely different standpoint. We're going to be looking at the limbs, angles, and what it looks like, what are the most advantageous positions when the spine begins to rotate. We don't view mechanics as a yes or a no answer. We view mechanics in terms of a continuum from less effective to more effective. And so what we're going to be talking about here, and the first question that people are going to get when they look at this is they say, Coach Wolforth, I know you don't believe in teaching body part position. You're not a position guy, you're a movement guy. So how is it that this is not teaching positions? And that's a very good question. The answer is, we're trying to get our guys to feel the body part, the mechanical leverage positions that are going to be most advantageous when the spine begins to rotate. So we're really teaching a feel image at the most important point in the delivery, which is right into foot plant. When we get weight-bearing foot plant into release, that final connection is really going to be important. And the body, where our body parts are in relationship to one another as the body starts to rotate, is going to be important. If that body part, they get out of connection when the spine begins to rotate, or when the hips begin to rotate, we're in trouble. We can never correct it. The other good news to this is, if they are in really good position when the spine and trunk begin to rotate, then we're safe. We very rarely become disconnected at that point. So the key is for us to become connected as we go into heel plant and we get into weight-bearing foot plant. The hips and the spine begin to rotate, and then all those body parts are going to be important, because if we get in inefficient or ineffective leverage positions, it puts us at disadvantage mechanically, so therefore our velocity is going to go down, but more importantly, there's going to be extra stress to soft tissue in the shoulder and in the elbow, and we're going to have UCL, labrum issues, rotator cuff issues. So now, with that said, here comes the use of the connection ball. And we started out, just so you kind of have the quick evolution of how we got here, Eric and I started out with just a towel wrapped in a kind of a roll and taped, and that's how we started out. And then we went to a blue pad, a couple blue pads like this, and we use this to get underneath of it. And then we went to the ball. And Mr. Oates was very influential in getting us the right equipment to make this go. So there are 3 ways that we use the connection ball. And once again, the time we're looking at the final connection. The final connection, and that little segment is from when we get into weight-bearing foot plant, weight-bearing plant, and the spine and hips begin to rotate, then our body position is going to become important, and we need to stay connected, and it's going to help us stay connected all the way through release. So the first, number 1, Eric, I'll hold one of those balls. I'm going to have Eric kind of show you from the side, and Garrett's going to show you from the rear view so you kind of get this. Number 1, we're going to put the ball, let's go to this one first. This one is going to be the first one, and what we're going to do is, as you see, the elbow is going to be behind. We're going to have a scap load here, and we're going to squeeze the ball in through here, and that locks in this to the scap, and then the scap to the spine. Okay? And all we have to do is we're going to, as this is going to be locked in as we start to rotate. Then as Eric rotates and throws the ball, and that ball comes out, this ball will come out and it'll go. Okay? We just need to have, here's the things that we're looking at. And I'm going to look at Garrett's position this time. We're looking for this elbow to be behind. We got a scap load position. The forearm is inside, and this is less than 90 degrees. A lot of times we get out in here, and that's when we start to rotate. We're going to have trouble. This, let's go back again, G. Squeeze here. Now as we start to rotate, this stays really in good shape, and this is going to lay back as we go. This is going to lay back, and I rotate this way. The ball will come out, and we'll throw it here. So let's go. Let's do it one more time, Eric, from your position, and we're going to show Garrett from his position. It's a scap-loaded position. Notice that he's here as well. Even though he doesn't have a ball, his chest is stuck out. And so we're locked in here. And Eric is a B posture. I think, Garrett, you're a B is C posture. A is going to be an A posture, if you remember, is head and eyes level and very little spine tilt. B is a slight spine tilt, and C is significant spine tilt to one another. So Eric is a B. He's locked in this way, so he's already got a slight posture. And all he would do is just rotate and throw. Perfect. Okay, G? Let's show this. Once again, scap load position. We're going to get him to be big, so we kind of pry him. Forearm inside of elbow. We don't want to get here. Forearms inside. We get this squeezing here. That way we got this locked into this. We start to rotate. This goes here. We throw and come this way. That is ball number 1. That's way number 1. Number 2 is we put this underneath. So we're going to go to Eric. We want this below. If this is a acromial line, we want this below the shoulder. And we'd like to have it about 15 degrees. What we do is we just lift this arm up, put this ball underneath, and we squeeze this. This elbow, once again, is behind the shoulder. The arm is once again inside. The forearm is inside of the elbow. This is here. Now he's just going to rotate, and this is going to come out naturally, and we're going to throw it, because all we care about is this ball is helping us until the spine rotates. Once the spine rotates, this is just going to drop out of the way. And sometimes these balls get carried, but we don't try, here's a big thing, we don't try to carry this ball to here and throw. It's just there, and as soon as we rotate, that's going to fall out, okay? And the same thing with there, I should have mentioned with this. We're not trying to carry this ball to here and throw it. We're just getting to start. Once the spine starts to rotate, this comes out. It's just to help us until we get that final connection. So let's look at it from this perspective. All right? He's getting big here. This is here. Forearms inside. Everything's the same. Start to rotate. That comes out, and we go. Eric, you want to show us the 2 ways? We have a lot of people that now use 2 balls. You don't have to, but this is a possibility for you. Is that we'd put 2 balls here. One locked in here, one locked in here, and we'll just rotate and throw, and the ball will come out there. That's one way we use that. Okay? Now we go to the third way we use the ball, and that's on the front, the glove side. Okay? We'll start with just the standard one. Okay? We're going to have, this is going to be actually locking it in, and this is going to be locking in here so that as we rotate, this is one piece. Okay? That's going to be important that we rotate here in one piece. Where we get in trouble is when this gets separate from this. We want to stay connected. This is the one time the ball does not come out. We're going to hold on to this ball the way through. So let's go in slow motion to show us the connection. We throw, and we rotate. We just hold on to that ball. All right? You get ready for the next one here. It's the same thing here. We're going to go here. So he's got it pinched here, and everything else is the same. We gotten big here, forward here. We're going to rotate and throw and just keep on rotating. Keep on rotating. Okay? Now, so once again, I can't reiterate enough that all we're caring about is we have the right body position when the spine begins to rotate. Because if we're not here, and we're here, or we're here, or we're here, or we're here, or we're here, and we begin to rotate, we have the wrong angles for our levers, and there's going to be exponential stress on soft tissue, elbow, shoulder, and we're going to have we're going to have a real trouble throwing a strike down here because our arm is disconnected here. And remember, we're using the term rotate through a narrow window or narrow doorway. Rotate through, it's the same concept. Those 3 positions, when we're doing our connection, those 3 we use a blending with. We'll go 1, 1, and 1, and then we will throw. And then the one that when we're going to throw is live without any of it, and we're just going to try to feel. It's teaching a feel of how to be connected when we throw. Not a body part position in space and time, a feeling of being connected. And the definition of connected is I just did the presentation on that. Okay, so now let's go to the double ball here. All right, now we use, and I'll just have you turn it 2 ways, so we'll start with this one. He's got it both ways. He's got it I got this one, just lift it. He's got it underneath his arm here, then he's got it here, but make sure that's below. Make sure that form, that's it. That's it. So now he's going to rotate and throw there. So now a lot of our guys, Cody Springer, that's his favorite one, where he uses both of them together. So we got it both here and here, so this is connected. Okay? So we can use 2 balls there. We do have guys use a different combination. We may have a guy do a combo here and here. Sometimes we'll have guys do this combo. And yes, I know some of you guys are asking me, do you use 3 balls? These guys use 3 balls. It's really not necessary. What we're trying to do is just get a feel for that. But playing around with this, I would highly encourage it. Eric's going to have different needs than Garrett is. And we really encourage our guys, they play around with this and find out which one was the most important for them. So Eric, of all the 3, 1, 2, 3, which one is the most important for you? Ball underneath the arm, okay? So Garrett, which one is the most important for you? Okay? And obviously Cody Springer, I wish he was here because he would say this one is the most important. And even though, here's my final point before we go into this, even though Eric's most important was this one, I would strongly encourage him to also do some of this as well. I would still strongly encourage Garrett to do glove side and the one under, because they work in they work in symphony with one another. They work together. Okay. Now, before as we go, remember the concept is of blending and is to create a feel image for how we're going to throw. One final thing before I show. I want you to go back into the presentation. You see, on the screen, I have Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson, Greg Maddox, and Roger Clemens. The question that you need to ask is, how do they all look so similar? And the answer is, they figured out, maybe, and almost certainly unconsciously, they figured out by thousands and millions of reps what they need to do to be connected when they throw. Okay? Now, all those are different styles. All of them they pitch differently, but they all seem to be really connected as they get into that final connection. What we're trying to do here is speed up his learning. That's what we're trying to do. Because obviously these guys got to that by the sheer repetitions that they did. If I can shorten the learning curve, and that's really all this is about. You've been doing this for how long now? 7, 8 weeks. And it's going to take 7, 8 weeks. It's going to take at least 4 or 5 weeks before it starts to really make a difference. You know, you're just going to, and then slowly, this is not something, now some people, I will tell you, some people immediately took to this and had huge bumps. But that's not the ordinary. The ordinary is you're going to have to work at this for 8 to 12 weeks before you're really going to start to see this really take over and your movement pattern take over. So now, with that said, let's get to the drills itself. We use the connection in everything we do. We'd use it with the exception of our velo stuff. Our D-cell, using the beam, our D-cell, we use it. We use it for our command sets. We'll throw breaking balls with this thing. Eric will tell you he throws a better breaking ball with the ball than he does without the ball. Eric is trying to figure out how he can get that yellow ball, what the ruling is if he brings that on the field. I'm just kidding. But the deal is that we can do everything with the yellow ball, the connection ball, or the blue ball, whatever the color of the ball is. I call it the yellow ball, but some of you guys might have blue balls. But we're going to use the ball for everything, not just one thing. And so, G, would you show us do drill 1. Eric, I'm going to have you do drill 2, where you're going to come up. Just do a drill 1 and pick one of the drills, and let's hit your thing, and you're going to stay on. Okay? So you want to pick that up, and Eric, you want to do drill 2. We'll use the whole weighted ball series with this. We'll use the weighted ball series with this. And now he's going to do drill 2. Oh, you're still doing drill 1. That's okay. All right. Now, Garrett, why don't you go drill 2 and do with your glove side. Okay. Eric, you do drill 2 and yep. That's fine. Okay. All right. So now, we want to take this away. Now I'm going to start showing you some other drills. Everything that we do, so from our arm care, weighted ball, we never miss the chance of using our connection ball, ever. I believe it's so important that we will spend a portion of every single day, even in our velo. If we're doing our velo workout, even our warm-up leading into our velo workout, we use a connection ball. Because connection is, to me, a huge, huge thing. The connection means better velo, because we get better use of stored elastic energy, better summation of force. It also keeps us healthy. It also is going to help us on command, because now I'm going to be rotating here instead of having it separated and releasing out here. All right, could you guys do, let's say, a walking torque in for us? The next thing we're going to do is just a walking torque. Pick one, whichever one you want to do. Okay, and just kind of demo a walking torque here. Okay. Very nice. You notice they let this go. This is not babied or, anything like that. That is just, G, you want to show us another one here? Okay. Good. And Eric, one more. Very nice. Okay, so now we use now the blending, once again, the blending is typically this. This when we're in our workouts, we'll do one here, one here, one here, and then throw without the connection ball whatsoever. All right, so G, let's do a quick pick. Here's some other drills that we use. We do a quick pick. So what he's going to do, he's going to stand here, and as I touch him, he's going to turn really quickly and throw it, and he's going to keep this glove side solid. Okay? Get your B posture here. Okay? Eric, you want to do a jump back for us here. Just a jump back. So this is another drill that we do. He's going to jump back. Okay? Very good. Okay? Now let's just do a hook 'em, a flat ground hook 'em with this. Let's do, you do a 1, you do a 2. This is a hook 'em 1. I don't care which one you want. Very nice. Yep. Okay. And then let's do, both of you just do kind of a step into on flat ground here. Now we're going to do just kind of a rock into throw. Okay. All right, very good. Pick up the balls and we'll close this down. All right, so now, as you can see, we're going to use the the connection ball in our hook'ems. We're going to use it in every drill that we can use. The only exception to this is we don't really use this on double plays. And obviously, for obvious reasons, we have to catch and do it. But everything else, we use them. We're really trying to get a feel of what connected really is. We say the word all the time, but what does it really mean? And with these balls, that really locks on the arm to the scapula and the scapula to the spine, and we really stay connected. And you will see that our guys take this very, very quickly, and they really enjoy it. But you're going to have guys, especially guys, the guys that are the greatest, that could use this the most, the greatest candidates for this sort of connection is guys that have elbow or shoulder injuries, especially guys that are inverted W, guys that are lifting the distal humerus, guys that really fly open their front side, guys that get back behind a acromial line. When they really are starting to have some mechanical inefficiencies, this cleans them up a great deal. And like I said, use your blending and work it in. And typically, I will say this, typically the one that feels the least comfortable to you is the one that you need to work on the most. Meaning that if this one feels like no problem and the glove side is really doesn't feel very good, probably it's the glove side that is the most disconnected. Okay, and it's the same way if this feels, and so a guy that has an inverted W type of look, this one is going to be his least favorite because he wants to kind of have this action to it, and this is going to feel a little restrictive at first until he can feel that body rotating and staying connected. Then he'll eventually go, you know what, that feels better to my elbow, it feels better, I can throw it harder, easier, and I just feel like I'm much more connected. So we use it in our command set. We use it in our arm care and our decel, and we make sure that we, in all of our work with our weighted balls and our deceleration, our pronation, we use connection balls as well. And also we use it regardless of age. These balls can be blown up, and then the balls can be taken with air out. And so you can have younger guys that probably need a little smaller ball that they can get it in through here, and then you get guys like Eric that are above 6'5" that need a little bit larger. But it's all by feel, what they can feel like they can do. So the connection ball to us is really a great insurance policy to make sure we have a feeling of what connection really means. Because connection over the long haul means two things more than anything. It means health and durability, and it allows us to throw more consistent strikes because now we're releasing the baseball out here rather than coming around it and outside of it. So we found that the connection is something that isn't a side thing for us, it's an everyday thing for us.